Hey, everybody. Hope you're doing great today. I know this week has been just nothing short of a pretty big week with this, with Ida showing up. And I honestly think that we're not that far away from something impacting Florida with the storms that we've been watching coming out of Africa. I just think it's looking like it's going to be a pretty interesting time. The damage from Ida is pretty awesome. There's a ton of flood. There's a ton of wind. There's a ton of wind and flood. There's a ton of structural issues that I'm already hearing about that weren't expected. I have been just getting like call after call after call, text, message over every imagination of all the different trades and stuff that are going in to do things. Also, a bunch of folks that have never been, to the cat, but are going this time and looking for some advice. And I do what I can. But I mean, there's some of that I just don't know. Like I'm not real good at dealing with your lien laws and all that stuff. That's something a lawyer should do. But I did want to talk to you about this one thing. I wanted to talk to you about Shrinkwrap. It's a weird thing to just talk to you about individually, but I have this thing about the Shrinkwrap. Let me give you some examples. Like I had an appraisal about 6 weeks ago. And the roof was wrapped. It was a residential roof. It was a small roof. In this particular case, the PA had suggested that it needed to be done. And so it was done. So $7,000 later, it's an appraisal. We have to get them to remove the tarp, or the wrap, so we can do that. We investigate the roof, me and my opposing, and much to my chagrin, could not find any damage on the roof. And I'm talking crawl. Matter of fact, my opposing was especially detailed, and I really appreciated the time that went there to adequately look for damage, especially because we knew that tarp was there, that shrink wrap was there, and it's probably pretty expensive. Fast forward. We go inside. We find that there's a little bit of damage in a hallway. There's a little bit of damage in the living room. We head up into the attic and find that there's nothing leaking, but the ductwork is condensating. And the insureds know it because they've been putting towels underneath it. And when I asked them about it, they said, yeah, we have to put towels under that. And that's where the water was coming from. So one, we know the people that investigated the loss didn't actually investigate the loss. They just assumed because there was water underneath it, they put the shrink wrap on. Now, in that case, there was no need for the shrink wrap because there wasn't really anything wrong with the roof. It's a waste of most everybody's time and a waste of a bunch of resources. And when it came to actually writing an award to get that done, it was really hard to get that shrink wrap paid for because it didn't have a legitimate reason to be there. Got another one where the shrink wrap was done, $12,000, another $1,100 to remove it so that we can look at it during appraisal. And the roof did have problems. But the roof's problems, and it did have problems on multiple elevations, and it was going to be replaced. The tarp cost $13,000. The roof cost $24,000. So how could you get, just if this was you, How could you spend 12 grand to tarp it, 13 grand to tarp it, and then 24 grand to re-roof it? The math doesn't work. The truth is, somebody could have gone there, been paid about 4 grand to put a blue tarp down, and put it down with wood so that it attached to the roof and wouldn't get blown away. And there's not a place on earth that that's not going to end up being a new roof. But in this case, it's going to be a new roof, but it's going to also be all this other additional cost. Now, let me ask you this. Do you want to get in a situation when you're in Louisiana? Do you want to get in a situation where you want to have this argument over and over and over and over and over and over again about getting paid for shrink wrapping residential roofs that don't have substantial structural damage? I promise you this. I'm not the insurance carrier, but I promise you, I have talked to enough of these people in the last 2 weeks to know they are on the hunt for this thing. And you guys have got to be careful. Go make your 4 grand. Don't go in there and go for the big money on tarping, because that greed is going to choke you. By the way, on that first one I told you about, my opposing appraiser, I said, hey, well, looks like we got to pay something for like this drip edge and this fascia that's been, banged up because of the shrink wrap connection. And her exact response, which did make me laugh, but was very, very true, said, you should file a vandalism claim. A vandalism claim. Guys, I know a lot of you are looking to do this, and a lot of you are putting a lot of investment into doing this, and you've got great plans. I'm just telling you that this particular thing, the shrink wrap, and all of its cost are going to be something the carriers are going to not pay, when a normal blue tarp would have done the trick to mitigate the loss. Keep in mind, what they grade the insured on all the time is, did they go to the average person's level of mitigating their losses? Well, the average person would call somebody to put a blue tarp on their roof. The average person wouldn't call up and get somebody to put $10,000 worth of shrink wrap on it. And they're going to win that argument. Now, if you got a flat roof, you got anything that's weird, a roof that's just impossible to tarp otherwise for whatever reason, that's a good place to have it. It's an appropriate tool. I've estimated it and asked for it and suggested it over and over again. But if what you're doing feels a little more like greed, you are going to get your ass handed to you. And so this is just a cautionary tale. I have seen this not once, not twice, not 3 times, but I have been watching this in multiple states for hundreds of times, and I can tell you there are lots of days it doesn't go well. Guys, we are getting calls out the yin yang, and we are working really hard, already writing things up for this cat. It's a hard time. It's a busy time. It's hard to keep up with my voicemail. It's hard to keep up with my email. It's hard for me to get packed to go to the next thing I got to go to. I mean, it's just going to be a hard time. Let's do everything we can to lean on each other, and let's do everything we can to make sure that what we're doing is reasonable and appropriate. Because as long as it's reasonable and appropriate, we're always going to win, no matter where we work in the industry. Have a great day. Peace.